We want to welcome you to Christ Fellowship and to the Global 2020 event.
Years ago, a movement was born, making the question, who is my neighbor, transformed from next door to 150 nations across the globe. Since then, Equip has fulfilled its purpose to train godly men and women who will train godly men and women until Jesus' return. See, Jesus gave the Great Commission, and it was bigger than a keynote speech or a State of the Union address. He said, go and make disciples, baptizing them, teaching them, training them, empowering them. See, Jesus isn't about raising innocent bystanders. He wants to raise leaders. And leadership is no job for lone rangers. It's a job for influencers who want to play their position, rise to the occasion, join hands with a band of comrades to love their local and global neighbor as themselves. See, leadership means learning and serving, to meet the needs of the least of these, to train, disciple, teach them to lead in their jobs, churches, and communities. Injustice, poverty, disease, challenges like these have called Equip to take up the cross and a cause to lead, but this has been no quick sprint, no leisurely run. See, following Jesus is a relay race where faith and leadership are the baton. You were trained for this very moment. Lungs, trained to gather all the oxygen they can from quick breaths. Muscles and sinew poised and flexed, not just to run, but to finish. And God has furnished you well, fitted you from the shoes to the truth in your mouth. You are following in the disciples' footsteps, traveling 2 by 2, the Great Commission as your birthright. And instead of fearing change, you want to carry it with you into every place you enter, taking it into nations and communities to make sure there is someone to run this race long after you are gone. You have not rested on your laurels or gloried too long in achievements, which means God is not finished with you, which means you are not finished with what God has called you to do. You're not going to let obstacles or pitfalls or detours stop you. You don't run this race for earthly prizes or finish lines. You keep your eyes on the one who gave his life in sacrifice. You look to God with Nehemiah's eyes. You build and construct with Solomon's hands. You serve with David's heart. You live a life of sacrifice just like Jesus. So tonight, we celebrate. Say thank you for his love, for his hope and his future, for his grace, to teach leaders how to make a global imprint with Jesus' footprint, to fulfill a mission of transformation, to carry a message of salvation, to continue accepting the call to lead. This is your heritage and your legacy, to serve leadership that will change the world.
Well, good evening. We thank you so much for being here. And on behalf of John Maxwell, whom you'll hear from in just a few minutes, our board of directors, and in this room, some 230 plus international partners and friends of Equip. Amazing. Equip is in now over 150 nations around the world, and this particular grouping here tonight, register for this conference, represents 125 of those nations. We are extremely grateful for all the work that has gone into this. As we launch this, thank you, Pastor Tom, thank you, Pastor Todd, for your sterling leadership. Don't you love the leadership team of Christ Fellowship Church? In this room as well are what we call Equip Associate Trainers. Some who are here, some who could not be here, but those that are here, if you have been or are serving or have been assigned to a new place to serve as an Equip Associate Trainer, would you please stand so that we might welcome you? Associate Trainers. Wow. Wow. Well, Equip is now approaching our 15th to 16th anniversary. To put it plainly, we're in the middle of our second decade now. And Equip's birth, everything that you have seen and will see in this particular gathering of Global 2020, really goes back to two tensions that were taking place in John Maxwell, our founder's life, in the 1980s and the 1990s. The first tension was John's books that he was writing, successful here in North America, began to make their way around the world. And with the success of those books, and more importantly, the practical applications and the connectedness of those books, invitations began to pour in from all over the world. John Maxwell, please come to our country. Please come to our city, our culture, and train us in leadership. Physically speaking, that would be an impossible thing for John to have done. So out of that, Equip was born, an organization was born that could deliver in a relational way, in a regular way, the leadership concepts based in God's Word from John Maxwell. That was the first tension. The second tension in John's life was when he and Margaret would go overseas as pastors, representing their church or denomination. They would go over and do conferences, perhaps evangelism, perhaps leadership, whatever it may be. And John would come back from those trips, as he tells us, extremely frustrated because he saw leaders around the world who had great potential, who had great passion for God, but they were living in places or in cultures or spoke languages where leadership materials and leadership process was not available. They just didn't have the same opportunity as we have here in the United States or in Canada. So in 1997, because of these birth pangs that were taking place in John's life, these tensions, he sat down with family members as well as a group of intimate friends, talked about what he believed the Lord would have him do, and Equip was formally organized. Later in 1997, Doug Carter was hired as Equip's very first employee. And in 1998, Equip began with its very first international conference in a place called Kota, India. In 1998 as well, Ron McManus was hired as Equip's very first president. Ron McManus is with us, my predecessor. Ron, would you please stand and let us thank you for your service to this organization. Ron McManus brought together a very talented team, an executive team, a support team, people like Tim Elmore, Kevin Donaldson, Doug Carter, Dr. Sam Chan, who is here as well tonight, Linda Kirk, who serves in an administrative support role that is critical. They were all hired and formed during those times. Equip was not only at that time in 1998 and 99 ministering in the international community in its infancy, but it was also having some effectiveness on college campuses across the United States and in the urban communities of the United States. In 1998, our first resources were translated into Spanish, and we also had a tremendous opportunity to have a technology that was very fancy to us then, portable DVDs. And a lot of money was raised to take DVDs that John and Equip produced in various languages, and most of it was based on John's classic work, what became his classic work, the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And those DVDs made their way all over the world. Those DVD players did as well. And that was just another way that we were just taking those baby steps toward credibility and, more importantly, effective ministry in the lives of leaders. In 1999, we began to explore opportunities to take the 21 Laws curriculum to an even broader audience overseas. In the year 2000, I had the opportunity, at John's gracious invitation and the board's approval, to become Equip's second president. I'm very grateful to God for all the opportunities this organization has given me to get to know people just like you. We also, in 2000, put together a new state-of-the-art studio and training room in Atlanta. That was a very important initiative for us and helped define us more effectively and clearly to people as we were establishing credibility. In the year 2001, Equip expanded into Guatemala, into Beirut, Lebanon. We went into Cairo, Egypt, and we also touched a few sites in the nation of India. In 2001, all of us will remember 9/11. It took place. When that happened, you'll recall that our economy staggered and a lot of money started going toward New York City. Equip was still small. We did not have a lot of reserves in place. We were still trying to find our way. And as a result of that very difficult time for our nation, it became a difficult time for Equip in our experience. And so John and a few of us made a leadership decision to help launch the urban arena and as well the education or collegiate arena on its own, although we provided funding and encouragement and resources for them. And those urban and academic ministries have gone on and thrived with Tim Elmore and Sam Chan, and for that we are grateful. John was determined that Equip would become solely focused in our new economy and in our new world. We'd be exclusively focused on the international community. Now, just a few weeks after 9/11, which gives you insight into my boss's visionary thinking, he took me and a couple of other of our vice presidents to dinner before a ball game. And in October of 2001, he asked a question that would really define us for the next decade, the answer. He said, "John, what do you think our world would look like if somehow, some way, Equip could raise up, resource, and train 1 million Christian leaders around the world? What kind of impact would that have on the church? What kind of impact would that have on international leadership? What kind of impact would that have on the Great Commission?" And I said, "John, I think that's a great idea." And he looked at me and he said, "I'm glad you think so, because I want you to go figure out how to do it." And in 2002, we did. And with the help of a wonderful, brilliant team that the Lord had assembled in our midst, we began to put together a strategy that became known to the global Christian community as the Million Leaders Mandate. Now, before we could launch that with credibility, we needed a strategy. We began to ask ourselves questions: what does a leader look like? How often should a leader be involved in training? Shouldn't a leader be in turn training other potential leaders? How long should this process be? And then how would you roll it out on the planet? And for a year, we just ironed out those questions and tried to come up with some strong answers. And what we developed has become our signature approach in leadership development now in 150 plus nations around the world. We commit to go to a nation, to a site that is hosted by people that you saw bringing these flags down tonight, and people like them all over the world. We would go to that city, that site within a nation, 6 times every 6 months for a 3-year period. 6 times over a 3-year period, every 6 months. And we would roll this out. We would train them live for 2 days, and then when those folks would leave back then, we would give them 25 copies of the notebook they had just received. And they would go back to their circles of influence and they would train 25 more leaders. And we determined that we would do this globally over a 5 to 6 year period. So in 2003, in January, some of you were a part of this. You'll recall that we launched the Millions Leaders Mandate into Asia, into India, Indonesia, the Philippines, Egypt, and Lebanon. In 2004, we went to Africa. We focused on Southern Africa, Kenya, and Nigeria. In 2005, we went to Europe, and we were so smart, we determined to go to Europe in February in the midst of the coldest weather in the history of the world. But we did it. And we went to the UK, we went to Germany, Russia, and Ukraine. Some of you visiting us from those parts of the world were a part of that experience. It's where we became friends. Then in 2006, we headed to Latin America, getting more aggressive with El Salvador and Panama, Guatemala, Peru, Venezuela, and Bolivia. And somewhere in the mix, we decided to pick up China. Why not? And today, we're training over 400,000 house church leaders in China alone. Now, by 2007, we were training, and we could authenticate this, we were training 40,000 leaders live in conferences every 6 months on 5 continents, and those that we were training live were training on average 25 leaders themselves. We reached our first million leaders in 2007. We distributed among them 6 million notebooks, 36 million leadership lessons in 24 languages. And it all, praise God. And it all started with a question. What do you think the world would look like if we could raise up, train, and resource 1 million Christian leaders? And tonight, and these 3 days together, our founder is going to ask us another question that I believe will define us for the next decade. Now, in the midst of this, Equip's popularity began to grow. We became, by the grace of God, in greater demand. So in 2005, when we were running out of material, where we were launching our Volume 1, which was the only volume we had, 6 notebooks with 36 lessons, but designed for 3 years. When that 3-year period was over, there were people saying, don't stop, we're just getting started. So we created a second volume that would take people on the journey in those same locations and more for the next 3 years. And then we created a third volume in 2009 after we had finished in places with the second. Now, what these 3 volumes, this is very important. You understand our philosophy, our approach. These 3 volumes, if taught the way Equip teaches it, these 3 volumes offer Christian leaders around the world a 10-year leadership journey. It's been amazing what God has done. And along the way, other opportunities have come. We felt we needed to do a better job of getting Equip known in the United States as it was getting known around the world. And so we created a daily radio commentary called Leadership Moment, where John provides introduction for me, and I do about 40 seconds of John's material on Christian radio stations across the United States. Every single day, Leadership Moment, that feature is on 1,500 Christian radio stations. It's amazing, 1,500. Now, as I'm giving you a bit of a recap and introducing the ministry for those of you that haven't known us before, back in 2005, 2007, 2008, 3 consecutive years in a row, Equip was selected based on detailed analysis or surveys done by our employees. We were selected as the best Christian workplace in America 3 years in a row. 2006, 2008. And you're saying, well, what happened in 2009? Here's what happened. Our scores were so high, we were blowing away all the other organizations that were trying to get that award as well. And in a very soft, polite way, the leaders of that organization that provided the award suggested to us that perhaps we might want to rest a while. We were told not to compete anymore. That was kind of it. But I think that gives you a sense of the spirit of the team. We felt it very important in all these years that if we are going to teach leadership around the world, we have to live leadership in our own Equip office culture. And the Lord has allowed us to have a phenomenal team presently and phenomenal teams in the past. We're very grateful as well for the things that the Lord has done for us all the way up now to, say, 2009. Just a few years ago, we crossed over the 5 million Christian leaders trained around the world with Equip. 5 million. In 2010, we introduced a curriculum called a Leading in Times of Crisis curriculum. What was happening was we were getting requests from nations that were going through crisis, like Poland. Peter is here from Poland, our national coordinator. His nation, in one airplane wreck, lost their president, vice president, members of their Supreme Court, members of that president's cabinet, in one plane wreck. And the nation lost its leadership. And we were asked, as representatives of John Maxwell, to go to Poland and teach on how Christian leaders could lead in the midst of crisis and to open it up to a broader audience. And we did, September of 2010. The Lord has then allowed us to take that same curricula and go into Uganda and teach leadership in crisis conferences. We've been able to do that now in Haiti, and we're getting ready to go into Egypt with that particular curriculum. And so tonight, we give all glory to God that we are in 157 nations. Our curriculum that just 10 years ago, 12 years ago, was in English and Spanish, our curricula is now in 65 different languages and dialects. We have trained over 5 million Christian leaders, and we average, this is crazy, we average more than one Equip conference per day around the world. And I don't know if there's a graphic available, but perhaps there is, but let me just give you, for instance, how this is accelerating. You all remember the fall of 2007. The economy tanked, and we've been struggling and suffering as a nation and as a global economy ever since. In 2007, Equip sponsored 82 conferences. In the midst of this economic downturn, we cut our budget by about 40%. Now, fast forward to last year, 2011. In 2011, we had 468 Equip conferences. We've gone from 86 or 82 conferences in 2007 to 468 conferences in 2011. And the reason that happened was because of the amazing international leadership that we have in this room and the great work of people like Tom Adama, his team, Doug Carter, and others that have made sure that we didn't miss a conference and that we delivered where we promised to deliver. And we give all glory to God for that. In just about 2 minutes from now, John Maxwell will be coming up to share with you his thoughts about the future for Equip. As he prepares to come, let me just talk for a moment about today, 2012. We're so excited that in 2012 we have this wonderful initiative called Global2020. This will become a biennial event that is every other year. We will have this for the next decade as we see it. It will be in 2012, 2014, 2016, 2018, and 2020. We're very grateful as well for this whole emphasis that John is leading us into in the area of transformation. And we're also thankful that tonight, at the conclusion of John's remarks, that we will have the launch of the inaugural class of the Equip Leadership Hall of Fame. This is a very big moment for us that have been on this journey for so many years. As we project ahead to 2014, one of the things that we are so excited about is the development of a new home for Equip inside a facility called the John Maxwell Leadership Center in Atlanta. In our city of Atlanta, there is a marvelous pastor by the name of Kevin Myers, and his church is 12 Stone Church. And I think there may be a group of you here tonight. Am I correct? Is the 12 Stone group here? Yeah, they're throughout the room. Okay, welcome. Kevin Myers is a member of our board and just an amazing leader. And through his influence and through the influence of other streams that he has, John Maxwell has, the John Maxwell Leadership Center organization has purchased a piece of property on the northeast side of Atlanta on I-285 at Sugarloaf Parkway. It is a center of business and commerce in Gwinnett County. We will be right on I-85. When you're driving up that way, just wave at the building. You'll see my boss's name on the side of it. Inside that John Maxwell Leadership Center, with I-85 on one side and the 12,000-seat Gwinnett County Civic Center on the other side, We will have this John Maxwell Leadership Center that will house our Equip offices, 12 Stone's amazing residency program, the John Maxwell Company, and other entities that reflect the Maxwell leadership philosophy. And in there as well will be precious space dedicated to this Equip Leadership Hall of Fame. That's in 2014. If construction meets its goals, and knowing the wonderful folks at 12 Stone and their professionalism and accuracy to excellence, it will take place. In 2015, and I conclude with this, we are trusting God in just 3 more years that every flag here and up there, every flag, every nation in the world will have Equip training by 2015. That is our goal. Because at the core of who we are and what we do is this. We believe that the most effective and efficient way to fulfill the Great Commission of Jesus Christ is to raise up and train Christian leaders. You want to solve the problem of corruption around the world? Raise up ethical leaders. You want to take on injustice, human trafficking, human organ trafficking, sex slavery? You want to take on the drug problem? You want to take on the problem of child soldiers? Raise up quality leaders who love Jesus Christ.